Hello, everyone. My name is Larry Williams. I'm the president and CEO of TAG, the Technology Association of Georgia. Welcome. We're so glad that you're able to join us for today's webinar. During this unprecedented time, TAG is hosting a number of virtual events to help keep Georgia's technology community connected and engaged. Part of TAG's mission is to highlight how our technology community is helping to lead the way during this time of transition and uncertainty. We are seeing many examples through innovations and the ingenuity of our tech leadership. We are also seeing the community's readiness and willingness to respond to serving the needs of our community. Today, we want to focus on our ability to connect so many people with food, such a basic need, but yet the need is very high during this time. So today, I'm joined by two leaders on the front lines of serving those who need our help, and particularly those who are struggling to put meals on the table. With me today is Kyle Waide. Kyle is the president and CEO of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Every year, the food bank works with more than 600 nonprofit partners, including food pantries, community kitchens, child care centers, night shelters, and senior centers to distribute over 60 million meals to over 755,000 people in 29 counties across Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. Also joining us today is Jack Griffin, is the founder and CEO of FoodFinder. FoodFinder is a nonprofit organization whose website and mobile app show food insecure families when and where to get help from their closest food assistance program. Since launching in 2014, FoodFinder has grown into a nationally relied upon resource and contacted more than 265,000 people in Georgia and across the country with food relief. On a personal note, Jack developed the FoodFinder app when he was in high school in Gwinnett County here in Georgia and was one of TAG's top 40 innovators. So Kyle and Jack, welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Larry. Good to be here.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle, I'm going to go with you first, and then Jack, could you just briefly describe what your food bank does in a little bit more detail in your in light of the COVID-19 situation that we're all managing too?
Sure, Larry. So to start with, the food bank, as you already described, is one of the largest hunger relief organizations in the country. We support a network of now close to 700 partners across 29 counties, and through that network provide about 63 million meals to people in need every year. And what's important about that is, prior to the emergence of this crisis, there were already in our community 785,000 people who needed help. Food insecure families, kids, seniors, people who rely upon emergency food assistance to meet all of their basic needs. What we've seen over the last several weeks as this crisis has really exploded in our community is a significant increase in the need that now is present in North Georgia. At our website, we've seen about a 300% increase in the number of people seeking food assistance. That's also reflected in a new text for help system that we launched during this crisis, where people can text the word "find food" to a number and identify nearby food distribution points. We've seen thousands of people utilize that resource to find food. And what's notable about that is that those are new people seeking food, people who are not used to looking for food. We know that families with kids right now are under extreme pressure. They often rely upon the meals that are provided by schools during the school day to help meet the basic nutrition needs for their kids. And now that adds to the economic pressure they face. Not to mention the fact, as we were talking before we got started here, about the challenges parents face with distance learning and trying to keep their kids engaged while they also have work obligations. That's really challenging for the sort of low-income families that we serve, many of whom are still called upon to be out in the community working outside the home. So Those families are facing significant challenges. We know seniors who rely upon all kinds of assistance are facing all sorts of challenges right now. They're afraid to leave their house. They still need food assistance. There's a growth of the homeless population that we're experiencing, and we know is going to accelerate pretty dramatically here in the months to come. And of course, we have the extraordinary number of people who are now out of work. I think we just saw new unemployment claims yesterday in the news at the national level, and here in Georgia, some 400,000 people filing for unemployment for the first time in the past week. So the number of people just across our state and in our region who now need help is just mushrooming. And the food bank is working aggressively to respond. We have increased our distribution activity significantly, despite some challenges that I'm sure I'll talk about in a little bit. But just in the past 2 days, we've distributed about 850,000 pounds of food to people across our community, which is an extraordinary amount and about 40% more than what we were distributing prior to this crisis.
Got it. I guess I'll just go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was technology is wonderful when it works, and it froze up on me there for a minute. But thank you, Kyle. Yes, Jack, go right ahead.
No, of course. And thank you for the work that you do, Kyle, and everyone at the food bank. It's nice to say that FoodFinder is it's nice that y'all say that we're on the front lines, but we wouldn't be here without the folks at the food bank, and especially at the food pantries and the churches across the state and across the country, where people are volunteering to make sure that food gets in the hands of people who need it. But for us and our work at FoodFinder, since day one, our mission has been to make it as easy as it should be to find food assistance nearby. Especially with as we realize that so much of the fight against hunger and really the social safety net in America as a whole is surprisingly difficult to navigate, as we've already mentioned, especially for people who are interacting with these programs and who need this help for the first time. When 4 million people last year in 2019 searched for food pantry assistance on Google, that is great to, it's good to know how much the need is out there for online information, but a regular Google search often doesn't cut it when really specific information like contact information, the requirements to receive assistance at food pantries if you need to bring a photo ID to even get food. There's a lot of minutia, unfortunately, that can, for better or worse, is needed in the fight against hunger today. So FoodFinder's job is to take all that clutter, all that, fragmented information and just put it under one roof and make it simple, straightforward, and efficient for folks to understand where help is being offered in their community. So in light of the COVID-19 response, our website and mobile app for the last 6 years have shown our interface is a map that we can show you your current location and the locations of all nearby food pantries, summer meal programs, hot meal assistance sites, and give our users the information that they need to understand when and where to get help from that location. But with the need we've also seen exactly a 300% increase in our site traffic, precisely on the day that the United States declared COVID-19 a national emergency. Our site traffic went from 700 people a day to 3,000. We quadrupled our impact overnight, and that's in Georgia and across the country. So fortunately, we have grown from just being a local Metro Atlanta resource to a nationally relied upon tool. We have the information of 5 out of every 6 food pantries in America on our platform now. But the need we are seeing just right now is unlike anything we've ever experienced. So in our part, we're doing everything we can to reach more families that are affected by layoffs, affected by school closures, turning them and make sure we can connect them to the programs that we have been, that have been on our platform for years already, but making sure that we can also stay on top of changes to food pantry operations. If people are, if programs are closing down, if they're reducing operations, if they're increasing operations, they're switching to a drive-through model. Those are all really important changes that we want to reflect. And also, we want to include new programs that are appearing to address this crisis in particular. So for school meal sites, the size of our database for food assistance in Georgia has effectively doubled in the last couple of weeks as we've gone from 1,000 year-round food assistance programs to more than 1,200 additional school meal sites that are continuing to give kids and their students meals even when in-class school has been canceled for the remainder of the year. So the awareness, making sure that if people need this help, that they don't have to get the runaround in the search process. We're doing everything we can to make sure that people have the food they need.
Great. Well, thank y'all both for all you do and for all the hard work that you do. Kyle, given the climate, just this massive increase that really happened overnight and the demand for all of your services, what's the bigger problem that you're trying to solve? Is it is having enough supply of food, or is it the distribution of the food itself and getting it to the people who need it, or a combination of both? And how are you addressing that, Kyle?
Yeah, so the challenge that's in front of us is, as we all know, is just kind of unprecedented. It's unlike anything that we've ever had to deal with. The bank's been through challenges before, 9/11, the impact of Hurricane Katrina, the Great Recession. And so we have experience in operating in challenging environments, but the environment we're in right now is just unusual and different than anything that we've ever seen. But the nature of the challenge, I think, falls in three buckets. I already talked about one, which is just extraordinary growth and need. The second part of the challenge is that our food sources are under significant pressure that really relates to the same root cause, which was the massive panic buying in stores that occurred, over the last several weeks. That really did two things to us. One, about a third of our total food inventory typically comes from donations from grocery store partners. And all of that donation volume has basically gone away as stores have really sold through their inventory more quickly than they have ever experienced. And then the second piece is the impact of that is that they have been buying up tons of inventory to replenish their supply chains, which makes it harder for the food bank, not just in Atlanta, but around the country, for food banks to tap into those other pieces of the supply chain to get donations, and now even to buy food. It's becoming challenging as there's so much demand in the market to buy stuff. We have to compete with Walmart, Publix, Kroger, and others for the same truckloads of items, and they typically jump the line in front of us. So a lot of challenges on the food supply piece. We've been able to overcome that, and in fact have brought in the last 3 weeks about 5.5 million pounds of food, which is again about a 30% increase over what we would normally do. We've done that just by really aggressively using every additional donor channel that we have. And then we've been buying a tremendous amount of food. So just last week, we purchased about $1.2 million worth of food, which is about 10x what we normally purchase in a given week. And we won't be able to do that every week, but that's a reflection of how aggressively we're trying to replenish our supply chain. The other big thing that you already mentioned is just the operational complexity of the environment. We've at our facility have closed it to outside volunteers. We normally engage 30,000 volunteers a year. And so that's a big part of our production capacity. And for us not to have access to that really is a complication to the way we operate. We've implemented all kind of cleaning schedules, social distancing protocols. We've adapted the way that we deliver food, the way that we distribute food out of our facility. Our staff schedules are different. As Jack alluded to earlier, we're asking our partners to operate differently so that they're going from a pantry style distribution to a drive-through model in almost every case to really reduce the amount of interaction with clients. And so all of that operational complexity at the same time that we've got tighter food supply and much higher levels of demand and activity just makes it a uniquely challenging environment. But as I said, we've been able to, through I think some good planning, a real kind of laser focus on our own capacity and the capacity of our partners, through the generosity of the community in terms of financial support, we've been able to navigate that successfully so far and increase our distribution significantly, especially in the last week.
Kyle, has the restaurant suppliers been able to step in and fill any of the gap of the traditional grocery store suppliers since a lot of their business is down?
So I think, when restaurants started closing, there was certainly some inventory, both from restaurants and the suppliers who get food to restaurants. There was inventory that was available to us, and we saw a surge of kind of food service inventory, a lot of perishable product we were able to accept, and we were able to move the vast majority of that really quickly. At this point, however, I think restaurants and the majority of restaurants really focused on just trying to save their businesses and take care of their own people. And so inventory is not really available through that channel right now. We are working on a variety of initiatives to provide, to work with kind of underused idle kitchen capacity to produce meals and get them to people in need to supplement what the food bank is doing. But that, in all cases requires some outside funding to help cover the costs for the restaurants, just because they are not in a position, given the challenges that they face, to do so on a pro bono income basis. Our restaurant community, who has been a tremendous partner of the food bank, they're trying to save their own businesses, which will be important to the way the community recovers from this once the public health crisis abates. In fact, we've been working with restaurant communities to also distribute food to the workers that they have been required to lay off, and had a big food distribution just this past week with one of our restaurant partner companies to help support the needs of the families that work for them.
That's great. Jack, with your platform, talked about the challenges of keeping all of your data up to date. So inventories are changing, the sources of food, how people approach that. I think Kyle made some good points about the social distancing and how people do that. How are you addressing that on the platform to make sure that real-time, up-to-date data is getting to the people that need it?
Yeah, absolutely. That is really our number one priority, since one really component of this unprecedented situation is that the speed at which the nature of food assistance and the status of food pantry operations in Georgia and across America are changing at a breakneck speed. So whether, fortunately in, my home community of Gwinnett County, we have a lot of wonderful, co-ops and food assistance programs who have actually, doubled or tripled, the number of days that they're giving out food to meet the surge in need that we're witnessing. But whether it's increased number of days, decreased number of days, or switching to a drive-up or drive-through model, as I said before, that's all crucially important. So how we are addressing that problem is really through a whole host of communication channels with either individually with or directly to food assistance providers on the ground, as well as ideally where we can get a lot of the most recent data in bulk form if there is any single entity that has it. The best case that we can give for that is with both the Georgia Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, every week we get the most recent up-to-date spreadsheet as to what schools in Georgia are continuing to provide meals to their students. Now, actually, within the last month, we've gone from 50,000 programs in our database to close to 65,000 nationwide, with the addition of since that for I think most, if not all, states in America, the school year of in-person classes is essentially already over. Classes are taking place virtually, but no one will go to will physically visit a school until the fall, and that's why the USDA's summer meal program that is has been operating for years is usually reserved for the summer months of May through August. Those locations, those meal operations are being fast-tracked by several months. And we've already uploaded more than 13,000 of those programs that are giving away food to families and students in need to our database, and so that people can find it on our assistance map. But right here in our own backyard in Gwinnett and Metro Atlanta, we're using a lot of our resources to make sure we can have the communication with the food pantries. But the best case scenario for us is that the programs that we have a relationship with and the programs that are on FoodFinder actually can take ownership of their own information. Within the last several months, we've implemented our biggest software update ever, and that included a food pantry data crowdsourcing portal. So where if you are a volunteer with a food pantry, if you're a food pantry operator, you can actually go on our website and our mobile app and update or add your listing directly to our map to make sure that our users can know the most relevant, most comprehensive, and up-to-date information on the program that you're familiar with. So, having users, our users, contribute to the accuracy and reliability of our database is huge for us, and in the immediate crisis we're facing, and in the long-term viability of us as an information platform.
That's an excellent point. It's not only the demand of the people who need it, it's the uptick. And we've seen some creative solutions. Like I see schools realizing they had food, even though they didn't have students at the school, and we're starting to either provide meals. And I saw a unique solution. People were using the school buses. Well, let's go a regular route for the school bus, and we'll deliver meals that way. Or people could drive by the school and they would hand them bag lunches and things. So I think so there's a lot of ingenuity coming out of it. What are those other sources? So thanks for pointing those out, Jack. Kyle, I saw recently that our own hometown airline, Delta Airlines, realized they had thousands of pounds of food and have provided those to the community. Is that something that you're working with them on?
Yeah, so Delta had about, I think, 200,000 pounds of food, across the country that they have donated to a variety of sources to help clear out their inventory. And they are one of many companies that have worked with our food bank and other food banks to get the food that they kind of had in their inventory to us so that we could get it out to people who needed it. Again, kind of the scale at which we're operating right now is just unprecedented. We distributed, as I mentioned, about 850,000 pounds of food just in the last 2 days, which, the Delta donation is a little bit less than a quarter of that. It gives you a sense of the amount of food that we're moving right now through our network. And the way that we've been able to accomplish that is, one, we have an existing partner network, existing infrastructure that we really worked to protect and keep intact. These are food pantries and other kind of feeding programs, many of them run by volunteers, many of them older volunteers, and there's some obvious fragility to that model. But we've been able to, through financial support, volunteer support, technical support, keep about 85% of that network viable, and operational right now. And that's really driving a lot of the volume that we're moving out through the community. In addition, we have worked with some of the schools you were just talking about to get food out to their families. I think every one of the school districts around the metro area here have come up with some kind of solution, utilize their cafeteria infrastructure to produce meals that they can get to kids and families either through kind of a drive-through setup at different school sites or on buses that they take out on bus routes or through other delivery partnerships. In addition to that, the food bank has been supplementing that food with distributions from our inventory at about 23 different school sites across 5 different local school systems on a weekly basis. So we're distributing now about 250,000 pounds of food a week through that school network, where we show up and in addition to the food the school is providing, we're delivering about 10,000 pounds of food per stop per week. That really helps families get additional food beyond what the kids are provided through those cafeteria programs. And then we've been working to come up with other kind of distribution partnerships that we've stood up on the fly to reach particularly impacted populations and geographies. This past week, I mentioned we did a distribution for restaurant workers. We did a distribution in our new kind of home community of East Point, a community that is particularly challenged right now. We've developed some home delivery initiatives for seniors in a variety of low-income communities around the city through various partnerships with the YMCA, the Westside Future Fund, Hands On Atlanta, and others. And we've now started working on a meal preparation and delivery program to utilize and under an idle catering kitchen capacity with one of our partners to produce meals and get it out to organizations serving the homeless population in Atlanta so that those meals are getting distributed to different homeless encampments around the city. So there's a variety of ways in which we're trying to preserve our core distribution infrastructure, which is the majority of what we can do to get food out to the community, to build this school infrastructure that supplements that, and then to do new partnerships that help augment our existing channels for distribution.
You know, one thing at TAG is we really do focus on STEM education and the ability to create the workforce of the future, especially for the demand that we have with our technologists. And one thing that we firmly believe is that, you know, a hungry child can't learn. So it's important that these programs are in place, and it's still amazing today.
All right, we've got a momentary technical glitch here. We'll be back in just a second. Thanks for hanging with us.
Sorry about that. I don't know where you lost me.
All right, we lost basically the whole question. So if you could repeat that, happy to.
I'll just start over and we'll see what Julie can do on the back end of the magic. Sorry about that. Hey, well, one thing at TAG, we're very interested in STEM education. We very much believe that a hungry child can't learn. So this ability to be able to provide this assistance, you know, which was being provided through the schools, now being able to take it to their homes or make it accessible to them is extremely important. And Kyle, you had mentioned and connected the dots before that now kids are at home, they're doing online learning, and they need other resources in addition to the food, such as broadband. So sometimes many of us take it for granted that there are people in the community, including in urban areas that are underserved, that don't have the broadband. Are there any community initiatives to talk about the broader needs of the community and the people that you're serving and being able to help connect those dots?
Well, there are a whole lot of needs right now that people are working on across the community. And I think, you know, it's kind of a triage approach that people are focused on. So I think first and foremost, the community at the sort of regional coordination level is super focused right now on healthcare access. We've got kind of a really dangerous time coming up here in the next couple of weeks to where we might see the peak of the infections and the peak of the number of people who are going to need access to hospitals. So I know the governor and people across the region are really focused on how do we make sure we've got adequate healthcare capacity to deal with that surge. Secondly, of course, people are very focused on food. And we've been talking a lot about that, and that's not just about the food bank, but it's a whole network of partners who are looking to get food to people who need it. Third, I think people are really focused on shelter. There's a report this week that there's a significant increase in the number of people who do not make their rent payments within the first 5 days of the month. Compared to the same period last year. And that could, portend for a real surge in the number of people who lose housing over the next 3 to 6 months, which will create a huge problem. And then, of course, on the rest of the issues, I've had a conversation with a couple different superintendents. The challenge of providing equitable access to digital learning resources is really a big problem right now across the community. I mean, it's not just about broadband even, or Wi-Fi access or internet access. That's certainly part of the challenge, but it's also the additional support that those kids need at home. So if you have a home where you've got two parents who have professional jobs and they're teleworking, but they've got an ability to tag team on how they support their kids' distance learning activities, that's a very different environment than if you're in a single parent household and somebody has to work outside the home and they have a patchwork childcare solution. The amount of support that kid is getting is really different than the kid in a different environment. So I don't know that we've come up with the magic bullet solution on that. I know people are working on it. Unfortunately, I think what this crisis is exposing even more dramatically than I think many of us already understood it, is just how disparate are the opportunities, resources in our community. The kind of impact of income inequality and the widening gap between have and have not is really being manifested in a more dramatic way in this crisis, where an ability of a community and a family to kind of deal with and remain stable and resilient through this crisis is very different depending on what kind of resources you start with. So we got to solve a lot of those problems. Unfortunately, we're not going to solve them in the middle of the hurricane. And we're going to it'll require that we now use this as an opportunity to kind of recommit ourselves to increasing opportunity for those who are being left behind.
Fair. Hey, Jack, so tell us a little bit about the biggest challenges in front of you, and then how can we all help, and how can the business community and our technology community help you?
Yeah, of course. So, challenges, apart from just the need, the data maintenance element of our work, it's just doing everything we can for not only we have, it's great that as a digital platform, our website and our mobile app can help a lot more people during the same time period. Then fortunately, we don't have to worry about supply chain or logistics or the really hard but necessary things to actually provide that food. As an information provider, then our work is very scalable. But that doesn't mean that we're without challenges. So even as something as simple as looking how in the last 5 weeks, we've helped more people in Metro Atlanta than we did in all of 2019. That comes with still associated costs of the awareness. We use especially Google ads, Facebook ads to reach people in need. We have hosting fees, the costs of the server time that we need to accommodate an increase of a couple hundred sessions per day to a couple thousand of sessions per day, and that makes a once minuscule sort of afterthought of an expense into a material operating expense for us as a nonprofit. So making sure we can reflect, we can incorporate and bounce back from those changes that affect us financially. But just challenges of, especially thinking about this in a macro scale. Kyle is exactly right, and that's what I've been, how I've been articulating a lot of my approach and FoodFinder's approach to this crisis. The fact that tens of millions of American families were 1 or 2 weeks without school meals from going hungry. The fact that a majority of this nation was even a minor personal or medical emergency away from financial ruin. These were all the conditions of our reality before the virus ever took root on our shores. So hopefully, I'm very much the greatest challenge. I think the much more important discussion to have in the long run is that now that we know how important schools are to truly nurturing the entirety of America's children and our youth, now that we know how bad things really were before the pandemic hit, and obviously the pandemic has only exacerbated the problems that we know were there, but still we were not in a position to act like the status quo before the pandemic was acceptable. We need to ask ourselves and have those hard conversations as to what do we do now that we know. How do we address these massive societal inequalities and discrepancies in who is in a position to succeed in this country? So the last part of your question, how you can help, don't want to sound like a broken record with everyone else asking for help, but donating to FoodFinder is by far the greatest way you can have an impact. Our website is foodfinder.us, and the donate button is right in the top right corner. That will be used entirely to make sure that we can reach food insecure families, individuals affected by layoffs and school closures. We know that a $25 donation actually helps us reach 250 people that we can then connect to food assistance. So as an individual, as a business entity, we could not be more grateful for any financial support that you're able to contribute. But something that doesn't cost anyone a dime is simply just spreading the word. Spreading the word of our platform, of the work of not only what we're doing, but as a result, when you spread the word of FoodFinder, you also spread the word of the hundreds and thousands of food assistance programs on our platform that are truly on the front lines of the fight against hunger, making sure that our neighbors in need have the resources they require to still be able to be as healthy as they can be. So, financial support and support with awareness can make an incredible impact in this unprecedented time of need. And we could not be more appreciative for any support that anyone wants to offer.
Thank you for that. Kyle, any closing thoughts, and what can we do to help the Atlanta Food Bank? What can we do to help your efforts?
Yeah, so I think, at the food bank, the things that we're focused on is continuing to protect our capacity, to grow our capacity, and to provide some leadership around regional coordination to attack food insecurity, throughout local communities in North Georgia. And as I mentioned, we kind of closed down the facility for outside volunteers. And so, we can't bring people into the building to help us with sweat equity like we normally would. there are opportunities to volunteer. We're partnering with Hands of Atlanta, the YMCA, and other organizations to deploy volunteers out in the community to different food distribution sites. So there are ways for people to chip in that way. We also encourage people to reach out to our partner network to find opportunities to volunteer. Many of those partners need help right now to continue to sustain their operations. And so if you go to our website, acfb.org, on the front page, in the light box that pops up, there's a find help button, which is also a way, much like Jack's resource, for people to go to a map, GIS map, interface, put in your zip code, locate a local pantry, and you can contact that pantry and say, hey, do you need some help? And I guarantee you they'll say yes. They could use volunteer support. So that's a way for people to get involved. And then thirdly, and most importantly for us, as I mentioned, our run rate on expenses right now is just kind of through the roof. We are buying a lot more food than we ever have. We bought more than $1 million worth of food last week. We are paying hazard pay for our staff that have to be on site. They're in the line of fire, delivering food, just pulling orders, receiving trucks, etc. And so that's added to our payroll costs. We've staffed up. We've got a lot of overtime. We have additional delivery costs. And so we've received a lot of generous support already, which is helping us keep pace with the increased demand. But that treadmill is not going to slow down as we go through the next 6 months. And to keep pace and not fall down, we're going to need to sustain our fundraising. So the very best thing people can do to support our efforts is also go to that website, acfb.org, click on the donate button that's right by the find help button, and make a contribution. It will help us sustain our efforts and really continue a very vigorous response to this crisis.
Well, these are both very worthy causes, and I can tell you from personal experience that both these organizations and both these gentlemen, Kyle Waide, President and CEO of the Atlanta Community Food Bank, Jack Griffin, founder and CEO of FoodFinder, thank you so much for what you're doing. Just a personal gratitude and gratitude on behalf of the technology community throughout Georgia, and actually we stretch beyond these borders. So keep up the great work. We're going to get this word out. Hopefully a lot of people come in and provide assistance and help out in any way that they can. So gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll let you get back at it.
All right. Thank you, Larry.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you for having us and for spreading the word.
Take care.